डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी.
Welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University Ahmedabad online video session. Today we are going to discuss first year BA English Introduction to Language and its Structure, code number 102, main English as well as subsidiary paper, that which we are going to learn right now, block number 3, unit number 16. So let us start the unit right now. Today we are going to discuss the topic of varieties of Englishes in this particular unit number 16. Look, video lecture for Omkar e-course BA English, first year BA English main as well as subsidiary 102, and introduction to English language and structure. And today the topic is varieties of Englishes. So let's learn block 3 unit 16. The varieties of English is different kinds of English is spoken all over the world. So basically the topic itself gives you the idea about language, English language, and its plenty of several roles of speaking English in different countries. As for example, English spoken over here in India, English spoken in United States of America, English spoken in England, English spoken in Australia, or English that is spoken in New Zealand or any other Caribbean countries. So certain different kinds of Englishes which are spoken all over the world. Various groups of English, they are going to be studied over here, and we are supposed to study that what are the basic features of these different kinds of Englishes. Cluster groups differentiate them from one another. So there are cluster of groups even. As for example, the English of India is quite similar to the British English. In the same way, English of Australia is quite similar to the English of New Zealand. So these are certain kinds of similarities as well as certain kinds of varieties. In the same way, certain kinds of dissimilarities. All these are going to be studied over here in this unit of varieties of Englishes. You can see over here contemporary divisions of English speaking countries. Why it is contemporary? Because currently the English is found as a very innovative kind of English. It has accepted many kinds of incentives, and there are fluent, frequent, always changing, constant changing kinds of pronunciation that you can come across because of the digitalization, because of the internet accessing, because of the development of media, because of the development of movies and the influences of Hollywood movies as well. There are varieties of different kinds of Englishes which are found right now. First one, let us discuss that. English is an official native language of all over the world. Basically, people accept that English is an official native language. It is not a mother tongue. But of course, we can say that it is an official language. It is an international language. It is the professional language nowadays people are using. Of course, in India, it is taken as a corporate language. So, people are fond of using English nowadays. English fulfills the function of a lingua franca. Look, the word lingua franca itself suggests that mutually incomprehensible languages and a need for common language as means of communication. As for example, English of a Britisher and English of an Australian are quite different, but they both are doing communication in the same language, that is English. So that particular usage of language is known as lingua franca. Similar usage of a particular language is known as lingua franca. English, the central role in international language, a number of reasons. There are number of reasons why it has become international. Of course, because of the colonial powers, and previously there were many kinds of different vernacular languages, but English is the only language that conquered in the African countries, in the Caribbean countries, because of their colonial imperialistic role. And there are many reasons that you can come across and go deep and read all these things why English has become an international language. But the question is not over here about why English is an international language. Our focus is on which kinds of varieties of English the students of English will come across, the learners will come across, which kind of English. That is actually the focus of this topic. The concept of isogloss. Look, this is a very significant topic. It's a phenomenal understanding of this session because it comes in the fundamental understanding of the language. Isogloss means boundaries between two regions which differ with some linguistic features, but they are called isoglosses in the sense, as for example, one region is America and another region is Canada, and both are quite different, but linguistically both are utilizing English. Both are Anglophone speaking people, both are utilizing English language, so their linguistic features are called isoglosses. Why? Because they are utilizing English, but Americans would have been utilizing English in their own sense and as per their own personal native impressions, as per their own aboriginal aspects, and Canadians would be utilizing English with their own specific perspectives, with their own specific influences of their native aboriginal original capacities. So this kind of mixture of these two regions and their languages is known as isoglosses. I think now you are clear about isoglosses, so we can go deep into the same topic and discuss much more. Look, isogloss means same language. Americans are speaking English, Britishers are speaking English, Europeans are speaking English, Australians are speaking English, Canadians are speaking English, but are these Englishes similar one? I asked you the question. Of course not. Almost all the Englishes would be quite different, and that is known as isogloss. Same language but have different kinds of interpretations, different kinds of pronunciation, different kinds of inflections, different kinds of lexical impressions, as well as their morphological and phonological structures would be quite different as per their region. That's what here we are going to focus on this unit, that is known as varieties of Englishes. One way of displaying an isogloss is to draw a single line between two regions which are found to differ with respect to some linguistic features. Look, you can understand that due to linguistic features, there are two regions and they are having isoglosses impression. The single line separating the region is the isogloss. Isogloss boundaries between two regions which differ with some linguistic feature which are called isoglosses. Look, again the same kind of repetition we are doing, and we are focusing on what is actually the meaning of isoglosses, isogloss boundaries. So isogloss is merely the understanding of the same language but utilizing the same language in different regions. The term means same language. Various groups of English countries, 4 geographical groups are here that you can see in this particular slide over here. Britain, that comes under the categories of England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland. All these 4 regions, they are utilizing similar kind of English, that is British English. Again, America, that is known as USA, Canada, African American Vernacular English, as well as the Caribbean countries. All these are coming under the same category, that means same language, so their isogloss is similar. Africa, West Africa, South Africa, and East Africa, all these come under the similar category, and that is why they are known as West African, South African, and East African regional language. That would be the same single equal language, that is the African English. Asia Pacific, that comes under the category of India and Southeast Asia. They are utilizing one single similar kind of English which is found in the Asian countries. Britain and America both are quite equal, but they are just like South Pole and North Pole. British English is somewhat more different. American English is having its own accentuated impressions, and it seems that, and it looks that British English is ever changing, constantly changing, always developing and accepting all the kinds of inflection and changes that are coming in their in the development of English language, while American English seems to be more static and more conservative when you study both kinds of Englishes. So let us see the deep understanding of all these varieties of Englishes. I think you are clear about isogloss, and you are also clear about lingua franca. These are the two main terms which we learnt up till now. So you must remember all these terms as well and continue understanding of varieties of Englishes onwards. British English. The main focus of our study is, of course, British English, because we are the people of India, and India is completely under the impression of British English. So you have to remember that and understand that. The phrase British English has monolithic quality. Look, a single clear-cut variety of fact of life. All the ambiguities in English will be blurred. Monolithic quality means what? It means that very large and slow to change. Look, monolithic quality, the meaning itself is written over here, and it seems and it shows that British English is very large and it is constantly developing and utilizing. People are utilizing English all over the world, and they are fascinated as well as felicitated utilizing British English, and that is why it has that particular word, monolithic quality, very large but slow to change. Means it changes, of course it changes, but it doesn't change as fast as it happens with other languages. Couple of obvious isoglosses. Look, the clearest one acoustically is the presence or absence of syllable final r. Look, the r sound is very much important. Sometimes r is not spoken in some of the Englishes. Within England, r absence is typical of large regions of south and west in speaking the position of r. Look, you can see that in southern regions r is not spoken, whether where in western areas of England ra is spoken initially. So these are different kinds of pronunciation changes, the changes in the phonological interpretations of the language, phonological interpretations of varieties of Englishes that you have to remember. Welsh English, that is known as Wales also. Wales is compared with either Scottish English or Irish English. Welsh English has features of phonological with morphological characteristics and few lexical items also. And Welsh is also known as Celtic English, and there are two things which are two major categories, two major varieties are Northern and Southern Welsh Celtic Englishes, which you are going to understand deeply. Look, Welsh, the Celtic language, found in two major varieties of northern and southern one. Northern English is more rural with pronunciation of full h occurs in full position. Southern Welsh English is h less. So as it is rural one, it uses h or h. And as it is urban one, if it is urban English, it's Southern Welsh English, which is h less. H is a kind of a pronunciation that comes under the words like honor, honest, or homely, homo sapiens, homogeneous, heterogeneous, where her is used, and sometimes her is not used in Southern English, Southern Welsh English basically, that you have to mind very well. In South clear la is pronounced in the north, the vela la may well predominate. So again there is a difference between Southern and Northern English. South people, Southern English, the community of Southern English, Welsh English, they articulate la, whether opposite to that, Northern Welsh English community, they utilize la as a velar predomination, as a velar pronunciation. Scottish English is also a different kind of English, the advance and variety of English which established itself. Look, Scottish English is known to be the advanced English, and it has many varieties also. Early stage later on developed into what is called Leylands. A is spoken as lowlands and has kept its identity as a distinct variety of Scottish English even to the present day. So that distinct variety is because of E, pronunciation of E, which is known as lowlands. Distinct varieties of Scottish English till present. Now you can find that there are many kinds of inflectional changes as well as pronunciation changes as per the time span change, as per the time grows, as per the centuries change, the pronunciations also change. Distinct varieties of Scottish English till present. Look, I can give the example of Shakespearean English. You know that there is a sentence, thou art free, or you is spoken as thou. And again there are many, hither, yes, the word hither shows that it's here, come hither, here shall you see no enemy but winter and rough weather. There is a poetry, this is the poetry line that I'm speaking, where hither is utilized. Hither means here, thou means you. So all these words were the words of Shakespearean Old English, but they are changed as there comes the new English. In the same way, Scottish English, Southern Welsh English, Welsh, Northern English, they are also having inflectional changes, and they change according to the different kinds of influences of different communities as well as native aboriginal influences also. Gaelic speaking community. Look, lowland area is known as Gaelic speaking community, and Gaelic was previously Scottish language. So again there is an understanding of Scottish English. So it shows that Scottish English, Irish English, Welsh English, all these are different kinds of Englishes. They also come under the category of varieties of Englishes that you have to remember well. Look, Gaelic was spoken by monolinguals in the Highlands and Islands, on the large islands on the west coast of Scotland. So Gaelic was previously which one? It was Scottish only. The people who lives under the large islands, they were known to be the people who are speaking Gaelic English, but actually Gaelic is also one kind of Scottish English. Old Norse was also one kind of English. It was spoken before 17th century, which disappeared in 18th century around. Yet in the 20th century, varieties of Englishes occur. Leylands, that you know, the most original of all varieties of Scottish English, Scottish Gaelic English, Standard Scottish English, Mainland British English, Urban English, chiefly spoken in Edinburgh and Glasgow, So all these are different kind of Englishes. Even you can say that the people of northern England, northern Welsh area, they are speaking rural English, and the people who are in the Edinburgh and Glasgow or London or Brisbane, they are speaking urban English. So different kinds of Englishes are found. In phonology, the native Scottish varieties are quite larger than strong deviations from southern British English. Look, these are the two things that you have to keep in mind. According to the phonology, the native Scottish varieties, these are the varieties which are mentioned over here: Scottish, Standard, Mainland, Urban. These are the varieties, and they are quite different, strong deviations from southern British English. Look, these varieties of Scottish English are quite different from southern British English, and we learned that previously in the earlier slide, that northern English is a rural one, southern English is more urban, and there are less sounds that we already discussed, so that you have to keep in mind. And again, you need to remember these things. Irish English, Ireland, known as Hiberno English or Anglo Irish. So both these Irish English, Scottish English, Southern, Northern and North, all these are the different kinds of varieties of Englishes that you are learning, we are discussing right now. Look, there is a quotation that you have to remember just for the sake of understanding clearly. According to Terence Dolan, Hiberno English means, Hiberno means Irish English. Here we have learned that Hiberno English is written over here. Look, Irish English is known to be the English of Ireland naturally, and known as Hiberno English or Anglo Irish. These are the two synonymal names, similar names of Irish English that you should remember. Hiberno English. Hiberno English means that you have two languages in a kind of unruly shotgun marriage together, fighting all the time. Look, what is that? Hiberno English talks about two kinds of inflectional Englishes. This is merely the quotation of Terence Dolan, who had spoken about varieties of Englishes in his particular book, How the Irish Speak English. That's the name of the book. And from that book, we have taken this part, this quotation from this book, and it is written over here. Irish or Hiberno English has distinctive varietal features of pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and patterns that vary from north, south, east, and west. Why? Because Irish English itself is the English of Ireland. Still, there are four kinds of varieties which could be found as per the regions. Northern Irish English, look. Then Southern Irish English, look. You can see the points. They are written over here. Then New Dublin English. Again, it's a kind of East or West English. What are these categories? Let's look into it sincerely. Look, Northern Irish English, they feel shameful to be considered unacceptable to educated people, whereas in the North, doctors, dentists, teachers and lawyers speak Scottish or Northern Irish English. So Northern Irish English is again a rural kind of English which has many kinds of inflections which seem to be quite rural, or they may look that they are not educated one, or they look quite uneducated, but they are cream people, that educated people, doctors, dentists, teachers, lawyers, they genuinely speak Scottish and even Northern Irish English with certain urban usages of languages. Then Southern Irish English, look, it has a static verbs, can be used with progressive aspect. How it is used? With static verbs. And New Dublin English, English used in Dublin or Ireland. So these are different categories that show that how English is affected by different communities of the same land, same region. Before understanding, let's go for America, English in America. Look, excluded Canadian English. Why it is written like that? It shows that we are going to focus only on United States of America, and afterwards we are going to discuss Canadian English. Before that, we learnt about Southern English, Scottish, and Irish, as well as lingua franca, and we discussed about isoglosses that you are keeping in your mind. And again, we are going to focus on varieties of Englishes using America. The region as America. The English of the African American population known as Black English. Look, now you are supposed to think about the people who live in America. Mostly those who are living in America, they are the people of cosmopolitan countries. There are native red Indians, native people, aboriginal people of America, but they are generally utilizing their own English language, their own language of America. And the people who came from outside the countries, other countries of around America, they are basically speaking English. As for example, African people. So the community who lives over there in African American region, they speak Black English. They speak English, but that English is known as Black English. Again, the community of African American is also known as Black English vernacular. Why there is a word of vernacular? Because they interpret or they speak English with certain kinds of inflections of African language as well. There are many African languages, Bodo language, and there is a language Swahili. So their own accentuated impressions, their own influences, their own native accents would certainly come while speaking English, and that is why it is known as Black English, or it's named as Black English vernacular. British and American English similar till the 17th century. Look, it's very much significant because British English and American English are quite similar till 17th century only, and afterwards the change starts. The two major varieties of English drifted apart. As time passes, British English seems to be changing faster, and American English remained more conservative, thus static. AE, BE, AE, BE, AE, BE. What is that? AE shows that it's about American English, and BE shows that it is about British English. Here there are the tables, you can see the columns of American English, British English, again American English, British English, American English, and British English. And almost all the columns show that certain kinds of words are spoken with different kinds of accents, as well as their spellings. They are spelled even differently, written even differently while utilizing these Englishes. As for example, honor, that is spoken in American English as honor, and in British English you can see that there is HONO, you are honor. U is utilized in the same way. Realize, which is spoken in British English as realize again, but spelling is different. And in theatre and theatre, favor and favor, criticize and criticize, center and center, odo and odo, idealize and idealize, meter and meter. These are the different kinds of pronunciation differences as well as spelling differences that you need to listen very quietly and you need to focus very well. Then you can certainly find a minor change that occurs while pronouncing the American English or pronouncing the British English. English in Canada. Now we are going to focus on Canadian English, which is between American and British English. Look, it is the a combination of both the Englishes, American and British English. Canada under the influence of Britain for very much longer. That's why it is utilizing Canadian English with British accents. But the Ottawa Valley in the west the city of Ottawa, which is the mixture of Scottish and Irish English. That's why the people of Ottawa are utilizing Scottish English or Irish English, and the people who are from Caribbean countries or African countries, they are utilizing Black English, which is known as African American Vernacular English, AAV, that is known as African American Vernacular English. Now look again, origin of African American English. There are 4 kinds of categories, of 4 features, 4 characteristics, 4 different perspectives that shows us that African English is quite different from other Englishes. Baby talk theory, look, communication of slaves, or it is very much simplified version of English. I think it's a primitive version, it's a fundamental English, very simplified English. That's why it's known as communication of slaves or baby talk theory. The name shows that how it is used, how that English is used. Then there is again Creole and Pidgins. I think the students, the learners who are coming across language learning in different other papers also, they know the meanings of Pidgins and Creoles. Pidgin and Creoles is merely a colloquial communicative English which is utilized by the native speakers. Creole hypothesis, look, African American vernacular English as per the necessity of the slaves from different linguistic backgrounds. This shows that the people of Africa or Caribbean countries, or the people coming from the colonial countries, surrounding areas of America, they come from many different kinds of linguistic backgrounds, and their English is part of their native speaking also. Cognitively, they are affected by their mother tongues or their native pronunciations and their native accents, and they are trying to adapt American English. That's why their English is under the impression of Pidgins and Creoles, which is later known as native English. Pidgins and Creoles, clearly I mean to say that it is merely the English of the native speakers, the English of the people, of the speakers who are utilizing their own mother tongue English also, their own English accents also, while speaking the while speaking the second language. That's what Creole and Pidgin means. Dialect origin view, look, segregation hypothesis. African American vernacular English is of course dialects of English. It is of course a dialect English. That's why it is known as vernacular. The word vernacular shows that it is the matter of segregation. Different kinds of Englishes are gathered and they are utilized by certain community. That's why it is known as African American vernacular English, and its synonym name, another name, is dialects of English. English in the Caribbean countries, the Caribbean and the northern coast of South America, bounded on the west by Mexico and the Central American states, and Atlantic and on the east. All this English is utilized by the people of Caribbean countries. They are utilizing English, African American vernacular English. As for example, the English of Jamaica, Jamaican English is quite nearer to English of England. You know that in Jamaica previously there was too much colonial and imperialistic powers, and the people of Jamaica, they were the slaves and they were the subalterns and they were the hyphenated, they were the people who had suffered slavery, black people. So these impressions of historical things which had happened in the history of course creates the difference while categorizing varieties of Englishes. That you have to remember very well. English in India during 16th to 17th century and colonialism, as well as major cities of India. Look, it shows that Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, or if you see the countries which were too much under the colonial powers, Cochin or Kerala, then there are certain kinds of colonial impressions, and because of that the English of those areas would be quite different in compared to the contemporary impressions and contemporary development of the country as well. The grammar varies from region to region, background of native language, and degree of proficiency of the individual speaker. Look, this is basically very clear that when a speaker is an MA graduate and a speaker who is a graduate, and the speaker who is the postgraduate and the speaker who is the graduate, naturally, because of their level of degree of understanding, because of their level of understanding, the small child and the adolescents, the small child and the youngsters, these are the quite different categories that create differences while speaking as well as understanding of the grammar also. English in Australia as well as English in New Zealand, or English in Pacific regions, or English in the Caribbean countries, North Caribbean countries, South Caribbean countries, these could be deeply studied. You can go deep down and read all these categories and what are the inflectional changes and what actually are the characteristics of the English of Australia or English of New Zealand or English of Pacific region, that you must study in your self-assessment work, your self-study work. You should take these topics because basically they are merely mentioned in your course, and only 2-3 paragraphs of understanding would help you very well. Look, thus Anglo-Celtic basically similar to Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific regions have different varieties of Englishes. In Australia, a large variety of native aboriginals, basically from Irish or English countries. If the people are from English countries, naturally they would be utilizing British English, and if they are Irish, so naturally you can say that they are using Hibernian English, that which we have learnt in previously. So these are the things about varieties of Englishes. You can learn this topic utilizing Australian English or utilizing Canadian English as well as American English, that you have to see while watching movies also. Good luck to you and have a great day. Bye. God bless you.